What's the difference between coaching, advising leaders at the bigger companies versus the smaller companies, which is our audience? What's a principle that you're seeing in the way that you advise, as well as what their needs are?
Yeah, I mean, so in one level, there's just additional complexity that's needed as you get larger. Don't try to do their stuff. Stay simple where you're at. I made the mistakes of trying to bring the big to the little right away. And it was like I made them shift gears too early. And I realized this is a cumbersome mess. You should never do that. And switched out of that quickly and began to help them focus on what is needed at this stage. Let's shift gears at the right place when we're ready for the next bit of complexity. Fantastic. Complexity can solve problems when it's needed. But until then, it's just a mess. Headache, extra work, doesn't add value. So that would be the difference. Otherwise, these are people just like the rest of us. I love the small businesses. The small businesses get to shift so quickly and they impact lives so fast. And a lot of the bigger businesses, when we were doing the work, it was a lot more like a big machine that was chugging away. And, we made a difference in the, stock valuation, but we weren't changing lives like you do in the small businesses.
Welcome, everyone, to another beautiful podcast on Fearless Founders. We're excited. David Gilliland is here. You're going to love him, as I have made friends with him. David particularly suited for our audience because not only has he got his own business right now, advising over 350 smaller businesses between 1 to 10 million, 1 to 20 million in growing their business happy, where the founders don't lose their mind in the race to grow and prove themselves. But he's also worked with, think of the world's biggest companies and the leadership. And I'm looking right now, over 40 of the global leaders out there, big companies, he's worked with them on their 5 to 10 year strategic vision and leadership goals. And he happens to be a beautiful family man. And we're so happy to have you, David. Thank you for giving us some time, because we want to hear these stories of what you've learned and what you advise and what you've seen over time. Did I nail most of the intro right? Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes, I am married to a wonderful woman and my best friend. And so I'll just throw that out there, and have been throughout this whole journey. So I couldn't ask for a better companion.
Yeah, I do the same. I say, this is Angela, my first wife. We've been together.
That's right.
The world we live in, you never know. And so it is what it is. So we're really excited to have you here. Hey, just because the frame of reference, what's the difference between coaching, advising leaders at the bigger companies versus the smaller companies, which is our audience? What's a principle that you're seeing in the way that you advise, as well as what their needs are?
Yeah, I mean, so in one level, there's just additional complexity that's needed as you get larger. Don't try to do their stuff. Stay simple where you're at. I made the mistakes of trying to bring the big to the little right away. And it was like I made them shift gears too early. And I realized this is a cumbersome mess. You should never do that. And switched out of that quickly and began to help them focus on what is needed at this stage. Let's shift gears at the right place when we're ready for the next bit of complexity. Fantastic. Complexity can solve problems when it's needed. But until then, it's just a mess. Headache, extra work, doesn't add value. So that would be the difference. Otherwise, these are people just like the rest of us. I love the small businesses. The small businesses get to shift so quickly and they impact lives so fast. And a lot of the bigger businesses, when we were doing the work, it was a lot more like a big machine that was chugging away. And, we made a difference in the, stock valuation, but we weren't changing lives like you do in the small businesses.
I couldn't agree more. Yesterday, late last night, I was on discussing some topics with some Asian leaders in Singapore, Japan, China. Bigger company, clearly.
Yeah.
And you could tell that the issues were the same that the small business owners have, but compartmentalized into their tiny division, department, whatever. Yet all the changes there didn't move the needle as much as it would be in a leader of a 20-man or a 50-man company makes a change based on whatever coaching, and all of a sudden, the impact from that leader versus a manager over a 100,000 employee base, they can help their teams, but it's not the same. not the same level of impact.
It just isn't. And they've got their hands cuffed in so many ways in those bigger. I remember working with the Singapore government, the same kind of thing. They're a member of our little community that I was running. And, you would do a 2.5-year kind of engagement to make a change, in which when I look at it with the smaller businesses, it's like 3 months. 3 months, we've done that and we're on to the next thing. We've implemented it and we're moving, right? And so it's just different. So I do enjoy the small businesses.
Me too. And so does Ike. We love it. Hey, along this journey, if you wouldn't mind knowing our audience, first-time founders looking for hope, can I make this looking for advice, right? I know you have many. Let's talk about maybe 1 or 2 things that you've learned over time. Even now, as you're in Elite Entrepreneurs, what's a consistent top 2 things that you run into that these founders face that you keep repeating as advice?
Yeah.
And stories to support that. Everyone loves.
There's a couple predictable places where they're going to run into and kind of plateau. Not because they're not smart and they don't have a great market. They've got that. It's that they get to a certain size, and the formula you were using to run your team and to respond to the market and do all of that, you just have too many clients and too many people to run it the way you used to. And so you start to face burnout. You're working long hours. You're fixing all sorts of problems. And so there's this shift from stop being the superhero and start building other superheroes. Like you got to change you got to put a new hat on. Quit solving the problems and instead build people and build places and time. People say processes, but here is how we're going to make these decisions, and you're going to still own it. Learning to hand that off, terribly difficult and painful for many at the beginning because all the dopamine that comes from solving the problems, you don't get it anymore. Someone else gets it. But making that shift frees them so much, and they'll triple in size. Like when they make that shift, they'll see this bump and be like, oh, wow, I figured it all out. Well, not really. You're about to hit a new plateau and you've got a new thing to learn. So just be aware every time you make a breakthrough, you may think you've got it figured out, and you do for about a 3x growth. And just about every 3x growth, there's a shift. So I always suggest find that community and find those people who have done that shift enough times that as you get to it, do the shift at the right time. Don't crank in the wrong gear forever and get tired and worn out before you finally shift. You'll start to think to yourself, maybe I'm not the right leader. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I'm only meant to do the 0 to 1,000,000 or something. And you'll get these doubts. It's just because you're tired. It's like you're going up this steep mountain in the wrong gear on your bike. Shift gears and you'll enjoy the ride again.
Isn't that beautiful, Ike? Right? You can see that. You can relate to that one.
Of course.
We've gone through that. I have to give you 2 examples right now. I just finished talking to a former client who sold his business, bought lots of homes and whatever. And he said to me, board wants me back. And when I left, yes, financially I'm set. I felt like I could only grow to a certain point. Mm-hmm. But once I had a fresh perspective, took a step back, I built something good and I'm needed. And I want to get back in the action with confidence that I now know that I'm actually better than I thought I was, as I doubted during the fight. I was worn out. He said, and my marriage was on the rocks. I had to actually leave to save my marriage. And now I have fresh perspective.
It's so true. And one of the reasons the board wants him back, more than likely, whether or not it was articulated or not, this is one of the things that are needed for the growth, is probably has a better vision for what this business can really be and has more passion around the impact it has. So others wanted to follow. They wanted to be in on the game because of how much he cared about it. It's so hard to replace the care and passion the original founder has in the business. And, I was with a business, they were 20 years. They had floundered right at 1 million. They go down to 700,000 up to 1 million. They just played this game forever. And the owner wanted more. And so did his son now, who was in the business. And helping that vision of the owner to continue and that founder to continue to grow, and then to get the son to engage in that, he was the heir apparent and he ended up buying the business. But to catch on to that vision, be able to share it well with his team, that was such a key thing. And once that was trusted, then the systems could be put in place too. And, they began to just grow and grow and grow. They're at 50 million now. 10 years, well, no, it's 15 years later, but 20 years stuck at 1 million, 15 years later, 50 million. They've really gone somewhere, but the vision had to be transferred over. And that's an important piece. I don't think we give it enough credit sometimes.
I know you have a question.
It's how amazing to me how everything is connected. When we talked about the large businesses, small businesses, the founders' passion, the drive where they want to go is unmatched. Like you can't have that in the big companies. It's probably not the founder anymore, and the manager is just responsible for what they do. But at the same time, the passion comes with a lot of emotional burden. So the weight on your shoulder is a lot higher because in a big company, you're going to get your paycheck here. Like, am I going to be able to pay the paycheck for the others that are believing me and supporting me 24/7 when I call them and 12 o'clock the customer is down, right? So you mentioned like growing earlier happily, like keeping your sanity check. Like what are the advices, the advice you give? Like what formulas do you use to keep it sane so that you keep growing as the company is changing, you attack it? I'm guessing entrepreneurs has to change before the company changes, like live in the 3 to 6 months ahead of the company, which is also hard.
Yes, they do have to start thinking a little further out. And there are lots of systems, there are lots of processes or meetings you should use and metrics you should, all that sort of stuff. So let's just assume your audience right now has some of the systems to expand their operations and keep growing. There's a side that, this applies to business, but it applies to all the areas of life too. When you really want to bring people together to do something great, the burden is on their shoulders because they haven't learned to share it well enough. And they haven't learned to plant that vision to where others start to carry it and are running to where the original founder, when done well, will find that they have to run to keep up with their team. That's a fun shift. And that's a shift we want to get to. Normally, I see that shift happen closer. If you do it well, that's right around 30 people. Okay? You're doing, whatever that revenue is given your industry. But the complexity is you got 20, 30 people going on now. And if you can plant the vision in their hearts, it's so powerful. And one of the secrets we found was actually kind of stepping back. And instead of thinking, how do I get them to see my vision? You get them to say, how can I help them begin to see a vision? How do I help them to envision a future? And then let's co-create. I've got a vision. They've got a vision. We have these visions. What pulls us together? And let's co-create a vision that is ours collectively. Mm-hmm. That kind of work where they see, wow, we can go do amazing things. And this is going to have a huge impact on me personally, but I find meaning in work. I don't just find pay. I don't just find utility, usefulness, though that matters, but I find fulfillment at work. And it builds me. And it's actually aligned with my personal why, the things that my wife and I care about, the things that I care about personally. Work serves it. So when I'm telling my spouse about work, she's cheering on that we're doing our work, right? For my business's work and purpose is to help others realize potential, to become aware of and make it real. Okay. So it just matters. Like we love that. Well, my wife loves that too. It lines up with our family purpose, which is a much higher one that really has to do with gathering family. And we kind of include everyone in the world in our family, right? How do we gather all of the family together? And we want them to know you belong and you matter and you're important. We want them to realize their potential as part of our family, the impact they have, right? So you could see how it aligns. Well, each of my team members have their own whys, but together we're this one. Well, when we get to that point, it's not so heavy anymore because my team's like, David, we realized potential today, but I want to do 10 times that much in 6 months. How do we do that? Here's my thoughts, right? And they're sharing ideas, they're pushing, they're creating. That we got to quit holding on saying, because I'm the founder, I'm the only one who gets it. And instead we need to say, others get things too. Do I get them? And can we together create a vision we can just sacrifice for, get behind, put our all into? That makes a difference for those first-time founders. Stop carrying it. Let them carry it with you. If you're not making payroll, tell them about it. Here's where I'm struggling. But our purpose matters so much. What you care about matters so much to me. I'm going to figure out a way to do this. Can you help me too? And help you nothing. This is mine. Let's do this, right? And they help you solve the problems. They help carry the weight. We think we're not supposed to tell them because then everyone will know and they'll leave us. And really, when we open up, the right ones stay. The wrong ones may leave. That's okay, right? The ones don't fit.
That's beautiful. I think there's a little element of what you just said last, like the wrong ones leave. I think when you're trying to hire people, you try to find those people as well. Like not just look at the competency, right? Like they've done this before. You have to, is this guy gonna support me as I support him? Is this gonna, like, are we gonna share the vision for this one? Because some people, they just come for money, and because they are so good at what they do, but they may not be the right people, right?
Yes, exactly. it starts when you've got your vision, then it's nice to filter people to join in with, right? The ones who get it, that want it. And you find it by sharing the vision, and you see who forgets they're interviewing, and they just start to get excited about it, right? They start to lean in, and they've forgotten about the pay discussion. They're just thinking about, what could we do? How could we create this? Let's go solve that problem. Right? It's so exciting. I love that you went right to the root of it. Those first hires matter. Those first hires matter so much. But if you get to a point and you haven't quite got that vision articulated, when I say vision, I'm talking about a purpose higher than profits, right? Where it's not just about money, it's meaning, it's cause. And I'm talking about values that say, we do it this way. It doesn't mean you have to agree with us all these things, but in the values, you need to value these same values. These 4 or 5, they're just so core to who we are. You need to have it to belong. And then we're going to have a mission which is tied to that purpose. Everyone can see that's in line with that, but it's measurable. This is the goal we're all going to make. We're going to make measurable progress towards it. There's deadlines, there's all that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to have mission goals that are like profits and revenues and all the great things that ensure that we're around. But it may be when you go to first develop that, and you've got your 10 or 15 people, maybe you haven't done it already, that some people don't fit. And that's okay. That is okay. If they are really passionate about something, that's what you want to find out, what they really care about. Then I hope that all of us as the leaders and founders, that we care enough about our people to go help them pursue that. Coach them into that role, coach them to that business, and you'll create advocates everywhere. But you don't want them in your business anymore because they just don't align with yours, and that's okay.
It's absolutely right. Look at that grin. Both of you grinning with recognition, having gone through it as operators.
Oh, yes.
I love seeing. David, going back on the very first principle, we're still on that first principle. Growth requires sharing. Growth requires not carrying the full load. You also talked about how ultimately it's great to have someone lead, carry, move on, but the dopamine hit gets reduced. And so the founder says, hey, I need more action. I feel that my value is dropping. And this actually happened to a client of mine who was so happy initially. At about 20 million on the East Coast, had produced a great company, a military vet, so he knew how to work hard, and he carried everything on his shoulders. And I said, dude, you are dying. And we discussed options, and he decided, I think I need someone who's my right-hand operator, like a COO, a president, a general manager. And I recommended a very strong candidate. He did hire him. And within 2 months, he said, I didn't know life could be like this. He said, I cannot believe how efficient our numbers are going in the right direction. I have a life. I can breathe, right? And then not even 9 months later, he wrecked everything because he felt like he reinserted. He screwed it all up, even though he saw that. And then all of a sudden, he went back to his reptilian, I need to get involved. And so ultimately that general manager, the person I recommended, left, couldn't deal with it.
Couldn't work with them.
How do you help people say, dude, let go of your baby? How do you get through that?
I mean, it's so challenging, right? And it's so real because like everything inside of you is screaming to go back. Let's pretend this military person, I'm not going to say he was this, but there's a really good chance he was a sergeant in the military. And the sergeant is the one who likes to, they're in the trenches. They're with their team. That's how you get street cred, is that you eat last, right? You care for your team. You're there. You dig as hard as they do. You run as hard as they do or harder, right? You stay up later. You wake up earlier. That's that sergeant mentality. And they look down on the lieutenants and the colonels and generals. You'd say that's looking up, but no, they look down on that. They look down on that. There's a certain ego about those who are out of the action. They don't understand. And yet, without the lieutenant, colonel, generals, their hard work, their dedication, all of that training, all of the battles they're fighting are the wrong hill. They're fighting the wrong battle. Highly effective at doing the wrong thing, right? And so the change, first of all, you've got to let your founders know you're going to feel this. You're just going to feel it. And I want you to be okay with it. What it is it's like you're going back to infancy, not infantry, infancy. Right? You are starting afresh. You're letting go of what you're great at and what you've honed your skills to do. And you're going to start doing very specific work that you're very bad at. that. And they need to be okay with that. It's like learning a new language, learning to walk again. You're going to be bad at it, but don't worry, because though, as that baby who was crawling and dominated the crawling space, when they start trying to walk, they're just falling on their face all the time. And it's slower for them. They're bumping things, like they could crawl everywhere. Walking, very challenging. Once they nail the walking, they're running already, right? And they're going, and they never want to crawl again because it holds them back. So he wasn't a founder, he was a second owner, but he came out of sales. He was really good at sales, like exceptional. An individual that could pull in 4 million in deals solo is a pretty valuable salesperson. Well, he's the owner now. They were doing 10 million in business. He was responsible for 4 of it. He had a team of, I think it was 10 or 11 salespeople, and he was pulling off 4.
Yeah.
Well, letting go of that was extremely challenging for him, and it was hard, and he hated it, and he always wanted to be there to give him advice, and kept saying, look, the reason you're stuck at 10 is because you're in the middle of sales, and you're not doing the work that needs to happen, which the new work at that phase is you need to start learning how to build leaders that could all lead as well or better than you. You need to be recruiting them. You need to be developing them, wherever they're at. You need to be building the people who could each build the size business you've already built. I want you to have 5 of those. Well, that would be 50 million, or 10 of them. There's 100 million. I need you to build others who can build businesses like this. And that's a new game. And if you can't shift into that new game, that's going to be a challenge. And so he worked at it, and he needed to set strategy on there, and he needed to be clear about the vision and be the voice. And what was funny was he did make the change. And about 4 years later, his sales leader got cancer. Going through cancer treatment, he survived, good outcome, but still very hard. And he's like, well, that's okay. I can step in. That was one of my clients. And there's $1 million deal on the table. And so he stepped back in to do the $1 million deal. He called me up and he said, David, I have hated this. There was nothing I used to want to do than work $1 million deal. I mean, come on, that's like a dream come true. He said, I've hated it. I've hated it every bit. And it's not because I wasn't good at it. It's not because we didn't close it. I got all of that. But every minute I was not doing my level work was costing our business money. Yeah. Working $1 million deal was costing them money. He said, what I do is a much higher value for the company. And when I don't do it, nobody gets what they need to succeed at their level. All these $10 million businesses don't get their support when I'm in doing $1 million deal. I should have been supporting the other $10 million functions of my business. And, he got it. He had made the change. So was it a magic moment? No, it's just at every moment I'm tempted to step in. And the word is no, you ask questions. When you're a leader of leaders, quit solving problems. Your only thing to do is to ask questions and support. Just ask questions. And Benoit, you've got a list of beautiful questions. It's how you do what you do. You get that and you get the power of it. But someone who's leading other leaders needs to learn that. You can sponsor talent. That's great. You can set direction. That's great. You can come up with lots of ideas. Don't share them all. Let them do a while. You set a direction. You hold to the direction, but you can ask questions. Ask questions to help develop people through questions. Let them solve their problems. Build people. And it's like a parent shifting to a grandparent. It's a different level of influence. Or so I'm told. I'm a novice. I'm just a parent. But I've seen the grandparents that shifted well, and they stop doing all the things parents, and they start doing the important things grandparents do. And then they love grandparenthood. Right.
Yes, so anyway, well done with his analogies.
Very nice. I love the analogy, by the way. I love this story about how you replicate yourself with new leaders that you're going to develop, so that $10 million can become $40-50 million for leaders. But I talked to 2 founders in the past 10 days. They were about between $2 and $3 million revenue. I'm going to tell you the story. Their stories are very similar, but maybe they're thinking it wrong. That's why I'm going to ask how you approach these. It looks like their business tapped out, slowed down. The sales are not coming anymore. Inbound is not working. They tried to hire some salespeople. They couldn't sell it. They hit the ceiling, and they said, okay, I need to pivot rather than trying to grow what I have. So they're betting on recent deals, new products, but because they are not the founder, they're not the kickstarting. They're delegating that to salespeople. Hey, salespeople, like engineers, you build this new product or adjacent one, salespeople come start selling this. When they delegate those, that's also not working because salespeople are not the founders, kickstarters. How do you approach these things? Because is it better to find out like what that $2-3 million business was doing and try to develop that? Because getting that level is also a success, and that means there is market for it, right? Yeah. Maybe they can't figure out how to break through that, but sometimes they might want to give up on that because it's just not working. Maybe there's like 200 new competitors now. It's just not worth it. But there's a few sparks that they can build another $10-20 million company with that. So how do you like advise them to think? Like, what's the mentality that they should embody?
I don't know where these two, what they really went through. But if you were asking them and kind of walking them through what was happening, there's a chance that all questions rose to them, that all major decisions were rising to that founder to answer all the questions, right? To make choices on price changes, that they were the ones that were making choices on product enhancements. They were the ones who were final say on the new hires. They were there's a chance that they were a bottleneck of decisions happening in the business. And so, you know what? And it wasn't as fun. And, I had fun when I started something new. And so the pivot is so attractive, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I'll go do something new. It must have been that this market just dried up. No, I just don't know any market that's only $2-3 million in the US. I just don't know it. Yes. They're there, right? There's going to be market. It tends to be that they're at that first plateau where they needed to shift gears. And I would look at two different areas to understand. Some of them are going to be very strong operationally, and they're actually pretty good at executing on the operations, and that their team is pretty good at doing it too. Great. Then we don't have too much we have to do there. Mm-hmm. Some are going to be really strong strategically in what their plans are for the future and how they bring the team together on a regular cadence to think about, what do we have to build for 6 months from now to succeed? What's the strength that we're missing to help us win against our competitors? Or what's the strength we have right now that we should leverage better? And how are we going to do that? And some of them are good at the strategy side. There's not that many who are actually really good at both. And so understanding where they're at and then saying, look, let's include your team in helping us to solve this problem, because 2-3 million, if we're stuck there, it means my high potential and my high value employees are going to leave me for something better, unless they're just happy, in which case they're not driven, right? If they're just sitting. And I shouldn't say happy in a bad way. I should say content. They're just content. But a driven, great employee isn't going to be happy being there because they don't get more opportunities for growth. So let's invite them in to co-create that future. So we talked about co-creating a vision. Well, what about co-creating a strategy? And instead of chasing 1,000 things, right? Hey, every time we work on this problem, I notice our sales drop. Every time we go and fix sales, I notice operation issues start flaring up. Why don't we fix one of these problems instead of putting out fires? Let's make that a strategic priority for this quarter. And this quarter, let's put it to rest. Okay, now I've got my team members putting in part of their time to work on this really cool thing that's going to solve my business issue. But the value isn't the solved business issue. That's cool. We're actually going to grow because of it. But I also just developed 2 or 3 other people to start thinking a little bit more like a business owner, right? So it's kind of a judo move. I'm kind of using things against them. I'm sneaking something in on the back door, but so powerful, and get them in a rhythm that they know every quarter we're focusing in on the next thing we're going to build. That could be a software solution. That could be a team we're building around it. That could be a new product launch. It could be a new product launch, but the team's building it. They're doing it. They're part of it. Do you think they would know how to sell it if they helped build it? Yeah, I think so. Do you think they would implement the new way that we're going to, the new SOPs we have in place to ensure that the customers are delighted? Well, yeah, they came up with it. Yes. They're going to implement it, right? And so that's one of those shifts is people need time and space to be engaged in either those strategic things or the operational things, wherever we're struggling. They need the time and space. They need the clarity of the metrics, and they need a chance to contribute, that their voice really matters in it. I would suggest those leaders look at build the team, they'll solve the problem. Sorry, that was probably too long of an answer.
No. This is great. It's about the mindset. That's what I was trying to get to. Like, we can't advise any of these people without knowing their businesses, right? Like where they're at. But it's about the mindset, because many live in fear of the people are gonna leave. I'm not gonna do this. Okay, I'm good at this. So those are the things that we're trying to find and help them. What the mindset should be. Most of the people, most of the first entrepreneurs, and I was a first entrepreneur, the first entrepreneur, and I know how it feels. There's a lot of fear-based decisions to have them recognize it and get out of that and look at the forest rather than being inside the forest.
Anyway, that's the worst thing we can do is fear that our people, if they really understood or knew, would leave us. The reality is the good ones will leave us if they don't understand what's going on, and the bad ones will stay with us. Let's involve them. Let's involve them.
So. Can we go there? Because that's one of the biggest things that I see founders suffering. They're all alone, but it's a moat that they created themselves. They are also depriving themselves from creative, alternative minds that could help them, but they're too scared to share. They believe that they have to be the one thumping their chest, the top man who makes all the decisions, or woman. So can we just go there? Because you brought it up before, you brought it up again. I was going to follow up with that. How do you help people release the tight grip that they have on their business, on their baby, where they have to be invincible? They believe they have to be, but it is absolutely robbing them of the opportunity to grow as an individual and the business, and it impacts their employees if they don't grow. They're already worried about meeting payroll. They've already got the stress and strain of telling their spouse or significant other. They don't even open up because they don't want to show that they don't know what's going on, and they don't want to betray the trust of their loved ones. How do you release the grip?
Well, and it's not always their fault. I mean, their loved ones say things to them like, I'm so glad you take it. I'm so glad we don't have money stresses because there's so much else going on. I don't think I could handle it. Or the employees, they talk about, oh, wow, did you hear that business? They just went under. They couldn't even pay their people. How could you work for someone who didn't set aside enough to cover their costs? I mean, really? And you're sitting there like, they only knew the stress I feel every time payroll comes around, right? Because, so we hear it in their voices and the things they say.
They tell us, that's awesome.
They tell us, don't tell me the truth because I don't want to know it. Right. And that's the stuff we hold on to. But really, it's a challenging piece. But leadership, Plate Mask, who's a founder here with our business, he said, leadership is the exercise of relinquishing control.
Yeah.
Right. That's the exercise, which means we're not good at it. It means you pick up those weights and you keep pumping it anyway. You look ugly doing it and it's okay. But that's the exercise, is in relinquishing control, because it's a false idea we have anyway. People make choices. You can't hoodwink or keep someone in the dark to keep them around in your business. That doesn't work anyway. And you just got to tell them. One friend of mine, he had a business. He was growing it. He was loving where it was going. He had a right-hand person he just really appreciated, trusted him with everything, he said. And then he called me one day and he said, hey, so-and-so just left. And he took half my clients with him and a third of my best people. Well, he took my best people. A third of the employees went with him. And they just spun up a competitive shop. Like, oh. And I said, wait, but you told me he was the heir apparent. You were giving the business to him, that your plan was to hand it to him at a very reasonable price because he's been such a key part building it. I'm like, you really turned away from all of that? You told him all this? And he said, well, I never told him those were my plans. Like, oh, that's interesting. Right. I never told him. It's interesting what we hold back. And what I've found is that when we open up the kimono, so to speak, and we share with them what we're really about, what we're doing is we're telling our team and we're giving them permission. We're telling them it's okay to not know. Ambiguity isn't something to be afraid of. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to ask for help, which, by the way, those are some of the key principles. Some of the hardest things to replicate and redo of the highest performing teams in the world have those attributes. Okay, so that's where the research goes. There's this, do we have psychological safety to take risks, to tell the truth, to say when we don't know and we're afraid, and to ask for help? And people are like, wait, what are you talking about? I thought it was the smartest and the best and the greatest funded no, none of those things actually factored close to it. The high performing teams, those are the key things first, is the psychological safety. And so when we let people in, we're giving them permission to do the same. Do we want them to hold back when there's a customer issue? Do we want them to hold back when teams within are having problems working together? Do we want them to hold back, or do we want them to share openly and us work through it and show that we can overcome challenges? So the way we're leading by by example actually undermines future success and current success of our teams. And when we choose to open up, and I push people to have full transparency of numbers with their teams. So 100% transparency, have those books open. How else can they make great decisions with you if they don't really understand the truth? Now, careful, caveat, don't show them all the stuff if you haven't educated them as to what it means, because you shouldn't just scare the bejeebies out of them and make them feel like they can't do anything to influence it. They should know what it means. They should know how their actions influence the number before they are shown it. Then teach them the next level, then teach them the next level. Right? Do it a phase at a time, but get those books open. Help them know what your doubts and concerns are. Invite them in, and then powerfully choose to lead again, right? When they know the risks, that's courage. So sorry, that was too much preaching. I know I get on a pedestal on some things. I gotta be quiet.
No, it was awesome.
No, we needed that. We don't have time. What we do have time, Ike, is we need David back.
That's right.
David. We'll schedule him back. We love this. There's so many topics to talk about, and everyone has only bite-sized attention nowadays anyway, but we will get sound bites more again, David. So here's a thought, a comment, and we do want you to get on your soapbox. We talked only about how leaders need to be able to go through each phase of the plateau, 3 exercise and whatever, by exhibiting certain behaviors, mindsets, and whatever. What's one more thing as a teaser that they need to be planning for, anticipating, that you see consistently as you advise, coach these smaller businesses? What's another element that you see regularly popping up? Just and stay there.
Okay, I'll just hit. Here's a couple. They haven't learned how to hand sales off to somebody else. So build the sales process, then it's easier to plug in a salesperson. Build your sales process and have your team hold you accountable to follow it, so it's actually being followed, and then see if the process can sell. So they probably want to do that. And financially, a lot of them aren't as literate as they need to be. And I'm not saying they're illiterate. I'm just saying don't be afraid of those numbers. Don't just trust the accountant and what they gave you. Have a clean dashboard. Check those numbers out. If you don't have and understand what the balance sheet is telling you, learn it. If you don't understand the P&L and its timetable, right? Those are in 2 different timetables of the way you look at them. You need to learn it and understand it, or you can't hand power to your team to make good decisions according to the line on the P&L that they influence. And then last, if you don't have a cash flow projection that you regularly update, it's on a weekly basis, you can see the changes and how those are going. Do that, because growth will crush you if you don't understand how you have to fund it as you move. So those that I watch those. So outside of sort of the stuff we've been talking about, those are 2 places that really trip them up because they didn't take the time to learn it. So many are embezzled on. So many they get sold by their salesperson to hire them, but that salesperson never sells. So the person's only good at selling at their next job, but not your product. So get a little smarter in those 2 areas will also help along the way.
Don't you think? Amen to that. Thank you. That was perfect. Thank you. Sincerely, we'd love to have you back. Ike, any closing comments for David?
It was great to have you. Thank you so much.
So good to meet you, Ike, and Benoit, good to reconnect.
You are a veritable pool of knowledge. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Everybody else, please share this podcast, this one particularly, to all of your friends, network, those looking for help. David's a great resource. Look up Elite Entrepreneurs. Is that correct? Is there another? Yeah.
The website is growwithelite.com, and you could find us.
Growwithelite.com. David Gilliland, you're a trooper, great friend. Thank you for your time here. And until next time, we'll see everyone. Okay. Thanks. Bye.